Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
The earth is flat, bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof, and I landed on the moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D, like a video game from 1983. On sides scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Call me B.O.B. cause I don't see the curve. Messing up my vibe, yeah, you got a lot of nerve. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. Read a book, nah, I don't wanna learn. They say that we are cake. For me and my homies, we don't say it, we just spray it. I'ma leave it, namaste. Do your research, how much I gotta say it. Earth is flat, bro, you need to check your facts. I got high up through the roof, and I landed on the moon flat too. In reality, everything is just in 2D, like a video game from 1983. On sides scrolling up and down the street while y'all sleep. Y'all sleep. Y'all sleep.
How you doing? I'm Mikey Jayy, and thanks for watching KGUP Presents. So this is a very special episode because I was asked to appear on Michelle Gibson's Fireside Chats airing on unguru.com or ungurunow.com. If you haven't heard of Michelle Gibson, you need to follow her. Michelle is a historian and researcher, and much of her work has been focused on ancient history, the Moors, mudfloods, sacred geometry, the truth behind the orphan trains, uncovering false historical narrative. Because of her incredible knowledge in this field, Michelle Gibson has been interviewed on dozens of shows. In fact, I interviewed Michelle Gibson back in July of 2021, but today she'll be interviewing me. So after our interview in July, I was inspired to document my trip to San Antonio, Texas. And, since then, I've just been observing everything. And while we were in San Antonio, my wife and I looked at the city with a completely different perspective. And we found some interesting details that I will go over in the show. So don't go away. On a side note, if you want to support this show, please become a Patreon supporter for only $3 a month. I just trying to get people to sign up. Every dollar does go into the show. And if you join for a full year, you'll get you'll receive a copy of my book that is coming out later this year. I am far from done. I'm only 70 pages in. So if you want to buy a t-shirt, as also if you like like the logo, but we have it's a different version of the shirt. You can go to www.kgup1065.com/shop. Nothing means more to me than knowing someone loves the show enough that they want to wear a shirt around town. So let me know. You can tag me at KGUPFM, and that's my Instagram handle. All right, well, enough about this opening. I hope you enjoy this interview, my interview with Michelle Gibson on her show. So I'm just re-airing it on my channel. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the other side. All right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Gibson, and I'm here today with my guest, Mikey Jayy of KGUP Presents podcast. What's the official name of it, Mikey?
It's just like a radio station call letters, like KGUP, and then the show, it's KGUP Presents.
And I met Mikey because he interviewed me last year, and I asked him if he'd be willing to do this with me, and he said yes when I was looking around for people to talk to for fireside chats and things like that. And so he accepted my invitation, and Mikey is a truther, and I suspect he covers a wide variety of topics on his show, and I'll have him talk about that here in just a moment. And then our shared interest in the historical reset, which I think is what brought us together. So with that said, let me go ahead and turn it over to you, Mikey, to talk a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into doing all of this.
Thank you so much for having me on this show. I mean, I've been such a huge fan for, I don't know, I guess a past year. How I came across your research is I was kind of by accident stumbled across a video by Howdy McCoskey, and he was had a video about the expeditions and the world fairs, and that opened up a whole can of worms, and I was just like blown away by all this, and it was just this huge rabbit hole that I never even considered looking into. And if they can lie about the shape of the earth, they can lie about everything. And I just started doing my own research this actually the past 6 months, because I'm planning on doing a documentary and book, because there's just so much information, and there's a lot of stuff that people don't talk about. And it's really about how the robber barons of the late 19th century, they just decided to change the narrative and restructure like our education system. And it all really started with the world fairs, and as you know. And so the past couple of years has just been really strange for me, because I used to just interview music artists. I mean, that music and entertainment was just my thing. But this past year, last year, 2021, I decided to change the format and go completely like truther, style, and just interview people who have a lot of experience in this kind of research and a lot of other, conspiracy type subjects. And that's how I got into this field of like, mud floods, the world reset. And as I've been doing all this research, I've just discovered that it's really a massive elitist conspiracy to change our historical narrative and kind of repaint our entire past. So we have no idea where we came from. And slowly through, because the information is still out there, they just don't talk about it. Mainstream news, mainstream education wants us to believe that in a certain narrative, so they've created the heliocentric model. They've created the this whole artificial reality. And little by little, we were just uncovering this like information, and there's a lot of evidence out there. My wife and I, we were out in San Antonio, and you just look at the buildings, the structures, and you can see evidence of a cover-up. And watching your videos, there's like almost in every major city, there's just these like underground like cities basically that are just buried. And when we went to San Antonio, there was so much evidence, and all these like floors that were way down below. And it's just incredible how much information is out there, and all you have to do is just go out there and look for it, and you can find the evidence yourself. And I know I feel like I'm going on a tangent and losing my train of thought.
But
but
I think it's really important to highlight that you're making the point that there is an overwhelming amount of information and places to look. And, you just really have to focus your attention on something. And, even when you're doing research, I know this is my experience. I'll go looking for one thing and I'll see something completely different that takes me into a different direction that
Right.
a lot of times I'll include because it's important. And
Right.
it just uncovers more of the fiction
Mhm.
around certain things. And you said you had a presentation that you put together?
Yes. Yeah. So if you allow me to share my screen, I
You
can,
should be able to.
and there's some video. I don't know if I'm able to do that.
The main thing is when you go to share the screen, there's a little box there that you need to click to check in order to share sound as well.
Okay.
If you don't do that, we won't be able to hear it. I learned
Uh,
that from experience.
Let me see. Well, the sound's not really important. Can you see this?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is the Tower Life building. According to the narrative, it was built in 1929. It started construction in 1927, but it has this like old architecture, very classical architecture. And we stayed there for a couple of days, and we walked to the river walk. And so we just kind of like looked at all the buildings and all the structures, and we found this, which was completely uneven and definitely had some underground stuff. And then we went to the front of the building, and this is what it looks like. And you can't really see it from here because it's just a photo, but it's very off-centered. It's not very balanced at all. So if there was, if it was buried, it wasn't completely leveled when they dug it out. There's another photo. And then we went to downtown, and some of these buildings and structures, you can see that there's floors that go all the way down and underneath the structure, which, most architects don't build floors deep. It just doesn't make any sense. So if there was these like this structure, if it was buried, I mean, why would you have flights of stairs going upward? And if you're building it this way to for flooding, then why would you have a floor down there? I mean, San Antonio has a history of flooding if you look into the records. So having floors that are below the ground level, I mean, it just doesn't make sense, and you're just expecting it to be flooded at one point. One of the oldest buildings that we discovered was the federal courthouse, which was said to have been built in 1892, which actually has a founded date. So we don't know who owned it before. It's just when it was discovered, they decided to say that it was built in 1892. And the word founded really means found dead. So that these old architectures were just found, just sitting there. And then you can see here in this photo, I mean, it has a subterranean, sub level. And here's some of the oldest photos. I think this is from 1901. And that was before we had cars. So it's like, how did they move all this stone with just horse and buggy? That's always baffled my mind, how they built these structures without, I mean, we only had railways for 40 years at that time. And one of the oldest buildings that we came across was the San Fernando Cathedral, which was built in 1731. That's what they tell us. And it's pretty magnificent. These buildings are just so massive, and you can feel some kind of resonance that comes from these old structures. So when you're in close proximity, you can feel energy coming from it. They have these like spires at the tips of the cathedral, So, I mean, they could have been pulling energy from the ether, kind of like free energy. Down the street from there, we found the City Hall of San Antonio. That was founded in 1889, and there's a sublevel as well. I don't know if this video is going to play. Can you see this? There's a video.
Insanity. No one would do that.
Of course, that's my wife in the background. I don't know if you heard her voice. She's pretty convinced that all this was a part of a conspiracy to hide our history.
I just want to make a quick point here, and that is field research is amazing. When you go to places and look at things with a different perspective that we're talking about, you'll get a lot more information than you will just by looking on the internet and looking at pictures. And
Right.
my own journey started with field research. And in many cases, I have to look at the internet because that's what's available. But you really do get a whole different experience if you do your own field research, like you're doing here.
Yeah, definitely. And here's the Alamo, and what I've discovered is that you're not allowed to go inside and take photos. Like they have security everywhere. So if you pull out a camera or you pull out your phone, I mean, they tell you to put it away. And I thought that was really weird. I mean, why wouldn't you allow us to take pictures? It's not going to do anything to the structure at all, as they claim. And I discovered that this is a facade. I mean, look at this, what they did to the top of the building, and that looks very modern. This arch that covers the entire building, and so it's like they created this artificial narrative. I mean, this building could have existed, but I mean, what do we know about the actual history of this building? I mean, they tell us that Davy Crockett had fought against the Spaniards and the Mexican army, and there was this great battle. But what were they protecting? Were they protecting this facility? But here's what I think they were protecting, is that there was an older building, and according to what they tell us, that it was this plaza stretched out just a couple of yards, but what they don't tell you is that it surrounded these two buildings. So when you look at this map, it shows that the federal building, which is the old post office, which is also I discovered that it was the Order of Saints of the Order of Saint Ursula, which is for consecrated women, which I haven't really looked into that deeply, but that was established in 1874, and then it was converted into the U.S. Post Office. And here is what was inside the Alamo, and this is what they didn't want us to take a picture of. But the rivers that surround the Alamo kind of go like this, and it surrounded the entire plaza. And the plaza was way bigger than what they tell us it was. So it covered a huge, massive structure. So it was big enough where it would surround that U.S. Post Office that's currently there today. And so what I think, it's just my hypothesis, but they were protecting this structure, and this building was here long before. And this is what the post office looked like before they tore it down. And then next to it was the where's my notes? The medical arts building, which was they say it was built in 1927. I mean, look at this massive structure, and it's pretty amazing. Now, the parts of the original structure of the post office is still there. It's underground. And so it didn't really make sense for it to have an underground structure unless it was already there. And then here's another photo of the medical arts building,
Wow.
which later on it became like a, um, a hotel, which is what it is now. And it's one of the most haunted hotels in San Antonio. And they used it as a like a what do you call it, for mentally for the insane,
Interesting.
but they called it a medical arts building, but it was really a sanctuary for the mentally insane.
So like an asylum.
Yes, like an asylum. And then right across the street from the Alamo, they had built this giant structure which was only there for about 10 years before they tore it down. And you can see just hundreds of people just standing around in there. And there's no record of the building at all. I mean, once they tore it down, the history of this building was just completely gone. So it's hard to trace back how old this building was. And then we also went to Six Flags Fiesta, and what we uncovered was a little weird because the entire amusement park was built inside of a quarry, and this is where they dug out all the limestone for a lot of the old structures. And up until 1992, it was abandoned and it was sold to Six Flags or whoever the owners of that company is. And now there's a giant amusement park inside of it. And I couldn't find any information how long ago this quarry was started, but it had to have been, decades. And then that's what it looks like now. And it made me think about the Grand Canyon, of how, I mean, if you look inside this the quarry and how, there's these like lines of how they cut into the mountainside or the dirt or the limestone, it looks very similar to the Grand Canyon. So, hundreds of years ago, we had dug into the canyon and we just kind of like left it. And we have no history of it, no written history of it. So we just kind of like, through speculation, we just kind of, historians will say that it's a natural phenomenon.
That's how they've managed to hide so much ancient infrastructure.
Yeah.
And it's a strong conditioning. I mean, it's really hard for people to start seeing this as man-made as opposed to natural. Because
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the concept is it's just too much to grasp.
Right.
But for a lot of people.
And then you told me about Rockwall, which is not very far. Well, my in-laws, they live in Rowlett, which is like a couple of miles south of Rockwall. And so when I uncovered this, I was like, oh, I want to look up this whole Rockwall and see what that's about. And right as I drive through here quite a bit and had no idea that this is there. And historians will tell us that, oh, it's a natural phenomenon and it's a natural occurrence. And I'm like, there's no freaking way. This is built by hand. And what's crazy is that they discovered a skeleton which they think belongs to a giant, which weighs between 1,000 to 1,600 pounds. I mean, that is incredible information. I don't know if that's true. I haven't really found that much information about this supposed giant. I just know that this wall covers an entire area that it covers 20 square miles. And here's a map of it. And this, where they dug this out, is right over in this area. And it's pretty insane how big this wall is. It's like, why was it here? And how did the entire thing get buried? because it's all underground. It's, I mean, as you can see, it's about 30 feet tall, and who knows how much deeper it goes. So it's amazing information. You can go to the courthouse in Rockwall, and they used a bunch of the bricks for for the building date. I mean, just to show that it's a historical site now. And it's pretty mind-boggling how crazy this is.
Oh, Rockwall is an important part of my story, and I'd like to share it if I may.
Oh yeah, of course.
So I moved to Oklahoma City actually in 2013, and I had moved to Oklahoma to help my brother with my mom, and I moved from Alaska. And it was in Oklahoma that I really started to wake up to all of this. And I want to say it was around probably 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. I learned about the rock wall at Rockwall from Dr. Samir Osmanagic, who is the Bosnian pyramid guy. And he's done a lot to bring a lot of this stuff out about how mountains are pyramids, and showing that they're pyramids, as opposed to the establishment that wants to say, oh, no.
Yeah.
You're mistaken. That's not a pyramid. That's a mountain. He's like, oh, no, that's pyramid. And he has this massive dig going on to this day, I'm sure, at the Bosnian Pyramid Complex. So I was reading something in an article that he had written that referenced Rockwall. Mm-hmm. And I was Oklahoma City is about, I want to say it's about a 2 to 3 hour drive to Dallas, right. Fort Worth, Rockwall area. Just hit the interstate, and it's a pretty easy trip.
Yeah.
And I had some travel friends at the time, and we decided to go first to Dallas to the Dealey Plaza, and then hit the Interstate 30 over to Rockwall. And Dr. Osmanagic's information was like pointing towards this thousands and thousands and thousands of years old wall in Rockwall, and that there had been some excavation done, I want to say around the turn of the century. When they weren't, stuffing the information under the under the rug. Right. And I heard something about finding the giant's bones, like you mentioned, and things like that. And then the story just kind of disappeared. And so I had also wanted to check into the whole JFK thing in Dallas. So we just made a day of it. And some really important things happened. And one was by going to Dealey Plaza and seeing how close all the buildings are to each other. The book depository is right next to the prison, which is right next to the castle. Mm-hmm. It's almost like claustrophobic. And being there and then doing research when I got home, the first thing that I looked up was JFK and Masonic connections. And I found an article by a man, I think his last name was Shelby or something like that, called King Kill. And that started talking about the grid, and that started talking about the Masonic involvement in the JFK assassination. And that was my really first big aha, that I realized that there was something within Masonry mm-hmm. that was bad, evil.
Yeah.
Freemasonry. The original Masons were the ones that built everything. And that goes back to Temple of Solomon, Moors. It's all been convoluted. When they, deconstructed the real history, they kind of separated everything out and made everything look different. But originally it was all part of the same thing.
Right.
And I was looking up articles on Lee Harvey Oswald, and it was like he came down the steps from wherever he was in the book depository with a Coke, and all of a sudden he's got these agents all over him, like he was surprised. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So I'm reading things like that, and I'm starting to get a kind of a bigger insight as to what seems to have taken place here. And then we went to Rockwall and started looking for it. Couldn't find it, and asking people, where's the rock wall? And they're like, what? What
Yeah.
rock wall? Don't know what you're talking about, and spending time there as well. But there's definitely been a lot of disinformation and misinformation about it. And the guy that did America Unearthed, Scott, can't think of his name. He did an episode on Rockwall, and he determined at the end of it, well, there's no Rockwall. And, this is a guy that was like unearthing all of this hidden history. And so I had big expectations for that episode, and I was really disappointed.
Right.
So those were really kind of big points on my own journey of coming into the work that I've been doing. Really integral to it. But I was looking there. It's where I look. It's what I'm interested in. And, I'm not interested in, the people at Dealey Plaza that had the, newspapers with the stories about the assassination and things like that. I had no interest in that whatsoever.
Right. I haven't been to the book depository, and I hear, since the murder of JFK that they completely preserved it. But like you, I wasn't really interested in that because it doesn't really, it's part of a narrative that they want us to embellish and want us to know. I don't believe the official story. I mean, I've always been into all these like conspiratorial like viewpoints of all of history. And yeah, that started probably about 15 years ago. But this past 2 years has just been eye-opening. I've discovered so much ever since the pandemic started. The pandemic had opened my eyes to a lot of different subjects and topics, and just discovering that all these things were just being lied about. It's just like the rock wall. I mean, it was all these universities, all the local universities were invited to come look at it, do the excavation, look at the evidence, and determine what it was. And they just kind of all agreed that it was nothing, that it was just a natural phenomenon that they couldn't explain. And so the story just completely went away. And I find that very incredible. But the proof is that it covers 20 square miles. And why would anything that natural only happen here? There's no record of any massive wall in any part of the country. It's just right here. And, why would they cover that up? I mean, create some alien story. I mean, I don't care, but,
but then, ancient walls are everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just, they've been called natural.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying, natural. People, I signed up to do an Oli Osher. So it's like workshops for older people here in Sedona. When I was first looking for venues to start presenting my information, and I had 3 people sign up, or actually I had a bunch of people sign up, but then the ones that showed up weren't even the ones that had registered. They were just people that kind of showed up. And so they didn't really have an idea of what I was going to be talking about, even though I had it in my description. Mm-hmm. And it didn't take very long for them to just leave, because they just weren't open to what I was sharing. And, I live in Sedona, and I'm surrounded by ancient infrastructure, red rocks. And they're like, well, did you talk to a geologist about this and all this stuff? And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do it this way. My community is online. It's not in my community. Because even in a place like Sedona, there's a lot of people that aren't open to it. It's kind of like it's a tourism destination on one hand, it's a spiritual destination on another hand. And, even within the different communities, there's really not an awareness of this. Some, but not a lot.
Right. Well, later this year, I'm going to be publishing a book. I'm hoping to be done by the end of this year. And a lot of the research is really digging into our education system and how our historical narrative is just being created. And it's been an ongoing thing for the past 150 years. Because when Mary Shelley died in 1851, it was kind of mysterious how her passing was. And, she's only known for her book, Frankenstein. And then all the other writers like Charles Dickens and Edgar Allan Poe, I mean, they don't talk about his book Eureka because he kind of exposes, the how the mainstream thought is only dictated through what everyone else agrees to. So if you have other educators and other writers and whoever's paid for and sold and bought, they all are in agreement because they're getting money from somewhere. And in order for them to continue to get that money, they have to have a certain thought process. So, which is why, all these, scientists, and they all only agree on certain things because that's what they're told to do. So, it's just people today. I mean, we're conditioned to believe everything on the news. We're conditioned to believe everything that all educators say, and that they're the smart ones and they do all the research. And, they don't pay any mind to anybody who does any research. They first ask, well, what's your background? What's your degree in? And it's like, you don't need a degree in order to be an expert in something. You just have to go out and do the research.
Right.
That's what makes you an expert.
My degree is in social work.
Yeah, my degree is in entertainment. So. And yeah, I mean, I study journalism, and studying journalism, I think, has helped me to be a good researcher, because I don't like to just say something without being able to back it up with some kind of proof. So I do have a hard time putting something out there that I can't back up, with evidence. So I'm trying to do this as like, it's entertaining to read, but then it's like factual and it's like an essay, but not boring. I can write a 2,000 word essay in my sleep, but it's one thing to write a book that's like you want to go from beginning to end. So it's taking me a lot longer than I expected, because I have to be careful about what I say, and like I have to if I find something, I have to uncover it. Like I've discovered that the Rockefellers and Andrew Carnegie had worked with the Guggenheim, and they worked with the Smithsonian to put in historians that they wanted to place. And so that's how history is just being changed. So when it gets to public education, this is what we know. This is what they tell us that we need to know. So it's, that's what all these world fairs were. So part of my research is like, not that long ago, I discovered that the Buckheimer orphan home here in Dallas was built in 1879. And so all those orphan trains that came from, New York, they were sent here. And then once these kids were old enough, they were already educated in what they wanted them to know. And so when they put them back out into the real world, they had this preconception of what life was like. And so, Charles Darwin, when he wrote about evolution, that's exactly what they know. I mean, there was no mention of God in anything. God didn't exist. So if you take God out of the equation, you just think we're on a spinning ball flying through space at 1.3 million miles an hour. And so you would never consider that there was a creator, or, this was a designed world. So, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, are you going to kind of talk about how the public school system has really evolved into an indoctrination?
Oh, yeah, it's 100% an indoctrination. I mean, we've been indoctrinated since the first World Fair in 1851. Yep. And that was in England, of course. It was at the glass, that whole building that was just made entirely of glass. And, we're expected to believe that they built that whole facility within 2 years with the technology that they had at the time. And then magically it just burned up, and they rebuilt it and in record time. And all these fairs, I mean, they built within 2 years, which is incredible, especially when you consider how big, like the St. Louis Fair, the fair in Buffalo. I mean, they had a population of 20,000 people, but they were able to make, a 200 square mile. I mean, not 200 square mile, but yards, 2,000 square yards of, I'm probably misquoting, but these massive fields of these massive structures, and then have these exhibits full of like all these, you know, modern day technologies. And we're expected to believe all this stuff and without question.
Right. And I say this all the time. I mean, thank God for the internet, because they lost control of the narrative, and, permanently.
Yeah.
They can't stop the truth from coming out. There's too many people that are converging and seeing and, taking it upon themselves to do what you're doing and do what I'm doing to get it out there. And, I graduated from high school in 1981, and I don't remember it being cray cray like it is today, with all of the transgenderism and, the push for teaching socialism and communism and all that, which was their end game anyway. That's what this is all about. And worldwide. So, teaching kids about all of this stuff nowadays. But it wasn't like that when I was growing up. I mean, I know we were still getting their version of history, but it wasn't this social engineering, I think, that's going on today in the schools. I don't remember it being that way. And I would say probably within a few years of my graduation from high school, it started to get weird, like having to have, in the school that I graduated from, which is in suburban Maryland outside of Washington, D.C., in an affluent suburb, they had metal detectors because kids were bringing weapons and things to school.
Yeah, it's a very slow progression.
Yeah, but it wasn't like that when I was in school. No. But within a few years, like I said, I think it started to change and turn more into, the whole idea of socialist and communist thought being, indoctrinated in young people, creating a lot of what's going on today.
I rarely watch anything that's on television now. I mean, I don't go to anything that's on network television unless it's a, like Family Feud. It's the only current thing that I'll continue to watch, because there's really no indoctrination there. I mean, maybe. But
for me, I love watching animal rescue videos on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, at night, because my creative time is in the morning. If I get started in the morning, I can last for a while, but I can't start in the afternoon. My brain is just like, nah. Yeah. So I have to do light things at night. And one of the things I do is watch animal rescue videos, because I love the happy ones. I don't watch the unhappy ones.
Right.
And there are a lot of good people out there, and I'm not, a lot of people just didn't get the memo about what's been going on here. So they don't know. They genuinely don't know. And
it's unfortunate.
I think there's more good than bad.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's still 90% of the public that are still indoctrinated and have a hard time waking up. Those numbers are starting to increase slowly but surely. I mean, once you step away from the left-right paradigm and you can see it from a distance, and you have a different perspective of how it's all mind control, and how the news media will try to pin you if you're against the vaccine. We have to be very careful because it's on YouTube. Right. But they try to place you, oh, you're a Trumper, or it just means that you're against a certain type of narrative. And so not everybody can fit in those two categories. I mean, I've always been in the middle since I got into journalism. Like, I've always been independent. And then I made the mistake of voting for Trump in 2016. And, they didn't even count our vote until January of 2017. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm not voting anymore. Because there's proof that they really don't care about what we really think. It's just a show.
Yeah. And I think the good news is that it's as hard as it is right now, it's waking people up even more, faster. The longer it goes on, the more people can see the crazier it gets, the more people can see. And there will be some people that won't ever see it. I mean, I've got that in my own family.
Oh yeah.
You know, poster kids for mind control or Operation Mockingbird or whatever it's called.
Yeah. And my in-laws, they were 60s teenagers, and they believe everything that's on the news. They hate anything that's conservatism or remotely right, and they won't look at anything that is anti mainstream education. I mean, they believe in aliens and ancient aliens, and it's like, Disney owns that, right?
The thing I like about Ancient Aliens is that it gets stuff out to the mainstream that it wouldn't, if you said ancient humans, it wouldn't see the light of day. So I appreciate that about it.
Right. Yeah. We spent some time in Deep Ellum. I don't know if I can reshare my screen again,
please.
But I had always wanted to go downtown and look at some of the stuff there, and like this cathedral. It's the First Baptist Church, First Baptist Dallas Historic Sanctuary, and this was founded in 1868. Did you see that video?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. And which was really incredible. And when we got really close to it, you could see that there was an underground structure. So if there was a mud flood, there was definitely evidence of something underground, and part of the building structure was buried. But they did a really good job at covering it up and making it look like it's always meant to be there.
I think the modern Masons did that.
Yeah.
I just don't think they built the building.
And then we came across the post office that's not too far from there. And there's a whole underground structure. Of course, they turned it into a parking garage underneath. And that was built in 1886. The original post office was demolished in 1935. And look at all this underground stuff. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I'm glad my wife finds this very interesting as much as I do. It would be hard to be a truther just by myself and her calling me crazy.
Right.
And then
it's lots, so many people just aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
So that's a plus for sure.
And then the Dallas High School, that was supposedly built and founded in 1907. And at the tops of the building, it looked like, it had evidence of these spires, so they could pull energy from just out of the sky. I don't know if you're aware, but a couple of years ago, 2018, there is a Tesla coil out in the middle of nowhere off the 35. And the Baylor University has been studying. They raised like $18 million to build this tower, and they're just pulling energy out of the sky. And they want to use this technology to power the state. And I don't know if this will actually go through, because you can't make any money off of free energy. Because if you create a power grid, kind of like what we had in the ancient times or before the reset, there was no way of making money off of that. Not until J.D. Rockefeller came in and decided to monopolize our energy grid, and and make us dependent on electricity and oil. So I think what'll happen is that we'll have all this, we'll discover that we can have free energy, but nothing's going to happen from it. They'll still find a way to charge us. So here's that Buckner Orphans home here in Dallas. It's only 4 miles from my house.
Does it still look like that today?
It looks like this today.
Okay, so
That's
similar.
what it looks like. Yeah.
It's like the same. You can tell it's the same building.
Yeah. But this kind of blew me away. I mean, look at all these orphans. They were just fully indoctrinating these kids. And that was built in 1879, so they say. I mean, this structure could have been here for hundreds of years. Who knows?
Right. We can,
Well, that's the end of my presentation.
very, very good. Thank you, Mikey.
All right.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, like I said, I mean, there's just so much out there. Once you start looking,
Yeah.
it
I mean,
will
I have
blow you away.
so much more I could show you, but it would take hours. And I am going to be creating a documentary to kind of complement the book, and that's probably going to take me just as long. Just finding video clips and all these pictures, it's so painstaking, and I probably won't make any money doing it because all these copyrights and everything. But I really don't care. I just care about getting the information out there and informing that the public of we're in a society where we're under complete mind control. And I have evidence that shows that all the elites of the 19th century were all a part of it. And it's not that hard to uncover. You just have to put
there,
the time
it's-
into it.
It's written down.
Yeah,
And
everything's
they're right
documented.
there.
I mean, you look at the Reed trials in 1954, and they uncovered all of this stuff that I've been finding out, that that there was a plan to change not only our political system, but the stock exchange, and how they caused the Great Depression, and how all of our education is just under their control because they have the money to. So even today, it's still happening.
Mhm.
We get these special grants in order to, and even my school today, we get money for doing certain things that, and which is why all our kids are still masked up, and and they're just living scared, and they shouldn't have to be.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's all tied together.
Right. It's really sad to watch.
It's like, so much gaslighting, but not only that, so much engineering of what's taken place. And you're talking about, with the work that you're doing. But I think when the truth, if the whole truth ever does come out, and I know I'm working hard on that too. It goes way beyond anything we could possibly imagine,
Yeah.
from weather to, outbreaks, disease outbreaks, the whole nine
Well-
yards. I mean, I think it's all connected.
Yeah. I mean, I just discovered that there are 3 cloud seeding machines here in Texas, and they're all in this region where the weather comes from. So, I mean, they're manipulating the weather, and it's like, why? I mean, we've always had snow. We just don't have it as frequently.
Yeah, I
And,
mean, I think a lot of it is the same, for the same reason as wars and all this other stuff. They're trying to, slam the crap out of this ancient infrastructure, and some
Right.
of it they keep. But I've done research on hurricanes on the Gulf Coast, and there's some buildings that are hit twice.
Mhm.
Just they got part of it one time, so they they sit through a storm again later on, especially New Orleans and Galveston and places along the Gulf Coast.
I
It's
think
just
at one point, they weren't ravaged with hurricanes at some point, but because of all these weather modification machines, they can make that happen.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe they're trying to eliminate the Moorish people, and whoever's left, they all live in that kind of that region.
right. I mean, they want their version of humanity. They want people that take after them instead of the creator. So they want people in their image, which is pretty darn messed up. And that's where the whole idea of the beast comes in and all of that. They want humans to be beasts instead of divine beings.
Right.
And the ones that are close to being divine beings, they don't want those.
Mhm.
And so you've got the genocide and everything else that's going on.
Oh yeah.
And, that's what we're seeing before our eyes right now.
Yeah.
And so, I am very optimistic, and, but they're not going to get away with it.
I mean,
very, very, very optimistic that we do have a positive future. But they have gone to incredible lengths
oh yeah,
to
it's very
prevent
organized.
that.
I mean, all the censorship over the last couple of years and you can see that they're trying to keep the indoctrinated to remain indoctrinated. And so that's why they're kicking people off of YouTube and kicking people off of Instagram for misinformation. But the reality is they don't want anybody else waking up and finding out this information. And so we're forcing us into a corner and into separate, these social media outlets, kind of like Unguru. I mean, you guys have to congregate into specific areas in order to find information. And if you're part of the mainstream and you only believe the educated, you're never going to look outside of that box you've been placed in. You just have to find the mistakes. I mean, I was indoctrinated for a very long time. It took me many years to finally wake up. And even when I thought I was awake, I really wasn't. I was only partially. And, I think over time, you have enough information in your brain that you can compare and contrast and say, oh, well, this doesn't, look right. But when you're young, I mean, you're so impressionable that it's easy to just be brainwashed by, because we're supposed to believe our educators know everything and are and rebel against our families. I mean, look at all the programming from the 90s. I mean, like Married with Children, and we've been making adult males just look stupid. It looks like entertainment, but it's really mind programming, and just to rebel against any kind of adult figure, and trying to build this whole society of like powerful women, and you can work and make money and you don't need a man, and it's okay to be a single mother. But it's really destroying our society as a whole.
Right. And you can throw abortion and other things into that mix.
Yeah.
But I'm really thankful for the internet and for the ability to reach people.
Yeah.
And the ones that, find it, that resonate with it, that it means something to them. And, that seems to expand exponentially. And, there's so many of us doing it that they can't, they really can't stop it.
Yeah. And they rely on the algorithms to find, who's dispelling misinformation, and they still can't, they still can't do it. I mean, a lot of people who I watch and follow, I mean, their accounts are just being deleted. And, we have to go to different platforms in order to find information. Like, I'm probably going to put my show on Rockfin, but it's kind of like, you're still kind of preaching to the choir. It's an echo chamber of all the same people with like-mindedness. Like, I don't mind doing that kind of platform, but I really want to wake up those that are still sleeping, who just watch sports and watch the news, and who, you get home from work, you're so tired, you don't want to do any kind of research. And, there's more to life than just watching what's on CBS or NBC. And we all really need to know what's really happening and how we're being deceived, because it is important information. And you can still find time to be entertained and watch a movie. Just know that you don't have to be susceptible to that programming. Just,
And it really is a distraction.
Right.
Distraction from what's important. It's a money generator.
Yep.
For the elites. They're getting rich off of our mind control, whether it's movies or ball games or whatever. I mean, if people knew the rituals that went on during the Super Bowl or child trafficking. I didn't watch the Super Bowl halftime show last year, but I heard about it. And if people can't see there was something wrong with that,
Oh yeah.
There's something
And
wrong.
the flickering, the light show. I mean, I could feel that it was like hypnotizing me. And then there was like the subliminal message that was just right in front of your face. I can't remember what it said, but it wasn't good.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, they're just being so blatant now, because people who do notice it don't say anything, but they know that there's something wrong. It's just like the Oscars or the Academy Awards. I mean, they're just flat out just obvious about how they feel and what they think, and it's all just so negative. I don't even watch any of that stuff anymore. And I used to love going to the pre-Grammy shows, and let's watch the Oscars, and we would go to all those events when we lived in LA. And now I don't want any part of it. It's you can feel the evilness.
Yeah. But it's coming out.
Yeah.
And whereas we didn't see it before, or at least not to the extent that we do today.
Yeah.
And
it's very demonic, and they just don't even care that it's obvious.
Yeah, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Those guys. And we're quite a prize, so that's why this has all taken place.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me. It's really an honor to be on your program, and I can't wait for it to come out and show it to all my people.
I really appreciate it, Mikey, and keep me posted on what's going on.
Oh yeah,
We
and
have a
all
lot
your
in
research has really helped mine, and hopefully some of the stuff that I discover will help your research as well. And we need more people with boots on the ground, and uncovering all this stuff, because it's everywhere. It's literally in every city all over the world. It's incredible.
Right. Absolutely. So, and as always, I like to encourage people to just start looking in your own communities. It's there.
Yeah.
You will find it. Start with historical streetcars in blank, and you will find them.
Yeah.
They took them all out, Rockefeller and his cronies. They didn't want the non-polluting transportation that they started up, so they had something until they could get their cars in place, cars and buses. Then they took them out in most places. So all part of it. Well, thank you, Mikey.
Oh, thank you.
Really appreciate it, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too as well. All right, thank you.
Right, thanks.
Talk to you soon. Yeah. And that was my interview with Michelle Gibson. I hope you enjoyed this episode of KGUP Presents. Please follow Michelle Gibson on her channel, YouTube channel, and join her Unguru at ungurunow.com. All the links are in the description. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to re-air our Q&A with members of Unguru. But it was definitely an honor to speak to all the panelists. It's a real shame that I can't share it with you guys, but I understand it's like an exclusive network. And if you want to check it out, be sure you do. And there's a lot of good content providers over there. And, maybe someday I'll join that organization. But for now, I'm just going to stay here on YouTube, and then you can always catch my videos also on BitChute and Odyssey. And if you guys want to be a part of the show, you want to be a part of any part of the discussion, let me know. Feel free to email me at info@kgup1065.com. I'd love to have a chat with you on the show. So often I have so many private discussions that I wish, I had a video of it so I can just post with you guys. But, some of these discussions I have are so fantastic, and it's a shame that I can't share it on here. So if you want to hang out and just talk, we can talk about anything. We don't have to have any narrative subject that we have to talk about. Just let it naturally take its course. Just whatever. I plan on doing more shows. Summer's coming up. I have more time off. It's hard to do it during the fall and winter season because I have a regular job that I wish I didn't have. It gets in the way. I mean, it takes up a lot of my time, and but whatever. A lot of us have jobs and we have families and stuff, and I don't like to use that as an excuse, but it is what it is. I just want to thank you all for watching KGUP Presents. I know I've been slow, but I promise to do more shows. If you want to support the show so I can do more of these on a consistent basis, please join my Patreon. It's only $3 a month. Annual subscribers will get a copy of my book once it comes out later this year. If you don't want to be a part of Patreon for whatever reason, I understand. But if you want a t-shirt like the one I'm wearing, go to www.kgup1065.com/shop. 100% of the profits go towards running the show because it does cost me a lot to run the radio station and do all the things that I do. And I definitely appreciate the support. If you can't support me financially, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That's all I ask. But stay tuned for another edition of KGUP Presents, and much love. Until next time, this is Mikey Jayy. I'm out.
Remember when I told you about the mainstream media? Your so-called celebrities and pedophilia. Remember that child trafficking and adrenochrome? Remember when I told you about the Georgia Guidestone? Remember when I told you about the false flag operations? Remember when I told you about 5G radiation? Remember that I told you that? Well, I just want to say that I told you so. I told you so. I told you so. I told you so. Yeah, I told you so. Yeah. But you didn't listen. I told you so. I told you so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This song about the Babylon system. Listen to the lyrics of this song. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Love and unity, more than hate and jealousy. Yeah, at this time, we need education, more than bullets and bombs. And at this time, we need to care for the young and old, more than silver and gold. And at this time, we have to wake up and change the world. As a result of 2,000 years of hypocrisy, ego-driven leaders in pursuit of property, power and wealth and fame, oppressing and murdering, killing all in God's name. Iniquity spread across the nation. Humanity is in due separation. In the midst of our darkest hour, we rise to reclaim our power. And at this time, we love and unity, more than hate and jealousy. Yeah. And at this time, we need education, more than bullets and bombs. We say we not give up, not give up. Oh no, we not give it. Not give it. Not give up. They achieve their mission using dirty politicians, brainwash education, war on religion, racial division, food with no nutrition. Hey, this is the Babylon system. Their intention to use all their wicked invention, all the propaganda promoting consumerism, exile and distraction, only misdirection to break eye connection. But if you want come follow me, make you know say what I want. This is how I get you ready for the Armageddon. I'm in on for the revolution. Power by love and compassion. Cause if we go at them with weapons, then they have more guns. Go at them with money, then they have more funds. With unification, then time soon done. We owe to our daughters and sons in a this time. This is time. We need love and unity, more than hate and jealousy. Yeah. This is time. We need education, more than bullets and bombs. This is time. We need to care for the young and old, more than silver and gold. This is time. We have to wake up and change the world. This is time. We need love and unity, more than hate and jealousy. Yeah. This is time. We need education, more than bullets and bombs. This is time. We need to care for the young and old, more than silver and gold. This is time. We have to wake up and change the world.